The northern Indo-Gangetic plains have been served by big rivers and their tributaries that receive a perennial supply of water from the northern glaciers. The glaciers have changed the landscape of the northern mountains by creating deep ravines or reducing elevations, opening up meadows in high altitude. Geologically, the northern plains have been formed by the filling in of earlier seas. These rivers have been a blessing to the cultivators as they bring in fertile silt and help irrigation. But sometimes they wreak havoc by causing severe floods in the fertile Indo-Gangetic plains. The earliest human settlements originated here as established by the discovery of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. The Vedic culture that arrived with the Aryans also flourished in this region. The main rivers Indus and Ganga and their tributaries served as easy means of communication. They also became one of the main instruments of empire building by facilitating the transportation of armies. The topography of northern India was used effectively in battles, as we know from this instance from Mughal military history.
Particularly, I recall one battle, the first battle of Panipat in 1526, a battle between Babur and Ibrahim Lodi. Ibrahim was Afghan. Now, in this battle at Panipat, Jodhanath Sarkar had shown that how Babur had marshaled his forces, assembled his forces. On his left was a dry Nala. On his right was the town of Panipat. And that left the Afghans to charge straight. And there he had massed his cannons which were being used for the first time.
The rivers sometimes served as political and cultural boundaries. A prominent example was Orissa, that lay between the Mahanadi and the Godavari rivers. The history of urbanization of North India definitely had a strong connection with rivers. Pre-industrial towns were mostly situated on riverbanks like Hastinapur, Pataliputra and Prayag.
Nowadays, a new kind of category that has come up, the history of urbanization. And scholars have tried to show that the towns in India were always on the banks of the rivers. It is, of course, not totally correct. There are certain towns which are not. For example, Vijayanagar, one of the largest towns in medieval India, was not on the bank of the Tungabhadra river. It was quite a distance. And it was in the midst of the Rocky Mountains. But by and general, the towns were there, and towns were located on the banks of the river, excepting, for example, in Delhi, on which Professor Athar Ali had written an excellent article. He had shown that the first Delhi of the Muslims, so to speak, was on the foot of the Aravalli Mountains because they needed protection. But then when the town began to grow, the Delhi had to be shifted because there was no water in the mountain. Only the rainwater that comes down. But it is too little and too less for the people, growing, burgeoning population. So therefore, the town began to move towards the Jamuna river, and it took them practically 3 centuries to come up there. And this travel of the city, due to the geographical factors, due to the influence of geography, had been shown very clearly by Arthur.